Hi there. It's July the 14th, and we're continuing our voyage through First Chronicles, and we're coming out of chapter 16 and going through chapter 17 and chapter 18. At the end of chapter 16, David, having delivered his first psalm, his first song of praise to the people and published it, he now leaves the worship of the tabernacle in the hands of chief officers. Among them are Asaph and Obed-edom and Yedutun. And these are in charge of the constant praise and worship that goes on in this new tabernacle of David, in this new place of worship. And there are trumpets and there's cymbals and there's much sound. Sound is something that is familiar in the presence of God in the time of David. And then in chapter 17, we go on to discover that David wants to build God a house. He says, I'm living in this fine house made of cedar. Why can't I build God a house? But God actually says to David, I haven't asked for a house. I'm actually content living in tents, living in mobile dwellings. In fact, he's moved, he says, from tent to tent. He's moved from the tent of the tabernacle of Moses at Shiloh. He's moved now to the tent of David, which is in Jerusalem. So God is not confined to one place. And he says, instead of you building me a house, David, I'm going to build you a house that lasts, a house that is a dynasty, a throne that will never cease, that will never fail. Of course, we know that in Yeshua, in Jesus, who is the descendant of David after the flesh, that fulfillment comes to pass, that he is the one in whom David's throne continues forever. He is the Son of David. And so God fulfills that promise to David through Jesus. And then it goes on in chapter 18 to show how David consolidates his kingdom and how he takes control over his enemies, over Syria, over the Philistines, over the Moabites, and puts them down. But it also says at the end of chapter 18, in chapter 18:14, that he rules Israel with equity and with justice. And those two words are very important in the Hebrew, mishpat and tzedakah. They go together. They're bringing the balance. They're bringing equity in a place of chaos. And this is what David brings in God's name to his people. We can be sure that in God's rulership, in God's ways, in God's kingship, there will always be that mishpat and tzedakah. There will always be that equity and that righteousness that comes through God's rule in Jesus. Have a very good July the 14th.